What if you made a sequel about making a sequel, but it also really happened and isn't really a sequel, but also it is?
I have to say, it was tough to crack this one because of how the trilogy, ended and the story was complete and all done.
Welcome back to The Matrix. In 1999, a brand new sci-fi trilogy that developed new special effects had a series of sequels or prequels come out a little over 20 years after the first one.
No one has ever done anything like this.
That's why it's going to work.
In that same year, a brand new sci-fi trilogy that developed new special effects premiered as well, and got its own sequel a little over 20 years later. Just like the Phantom Menace and Star Wars franchise before it, Matrix Resurrections reaches back and forward for the groundbreaking Matrix trilogy. Let's see how the past echoed in the present. There are a lot of iconic images that stem from The Matrix that are immediately recognizable. Groovy sunglasses, black trench coats, enough PVC and latex to fill the Folsom Street Fair. But the one that launched 1,000 screensavers and has been a cue for those who feel like they've coded reality is the green descending code that makes up The Matrix, which opens all the movies, as if the code is drawing the movie for you. So far, code has only descended like rain on a window. Lots of rain on windows, but for Resurrections, we got a new direction for the subtitle: the code going up, rebuilding, or resurrecting itself. The creator of that other trilogy that got a new set of movies 20 years after the first is known for believing that stories told in chapters like this should rhyme.
Every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one.
Lana Wachowski has taken the concept of rhyming and ran with it like she was Eric B. and Rakim releasing Don't Sweat the Technique. Part of that is starting this new Matrix almost exactly like the first one, with similar dialogue and graphics, including decoding the same number Trinity was calling from in the original, 555-0690. It turns out that all this repetition is not just the warm, comforting glove of familiarity. It's all by design, by a Neo who has gone back to being Thomas Anderson, programmer. Only this time, a successful programmer of a game based on The Matrix. But not the one that we got. This game's cutscenes were filmed. Some part of Thomas Anderson knew he was really Neo, but he needed his old pal Morpheus to unlock it. Without the real Morpheus, he created a model to have an Agent Smith AI develop into Morpheus. Before the Agent Smith Morpheus became Morpheus, he shared a first line with Agent Smith:
"Your men are already dead."
The internet came of age around The Matrix, and as such, The Matrix has permeated much of it, which means that even if you are not a Matrix fan, you know what the difference is between a red pill and a blue pill. Blue is buying into the illusion, living the lie. Red takes you down the rabbit hole and wakes you up to the real. But the illusion has steak, and a steak is delicious. And during the montage of Neo living as Thomas Anderson, there's also a moment where he enjoys a steak. Turns out steak is not enough this time. Resurrections has some old friends with new faces, some old friends with familiar faces, even a few old friends with even older faces. It also has some new friends and some friends who are not really friends at all. Initially, it seems like co-worker Jude stands in for the hardcore fan who now gets to work with his hero. It turns out that Jude's job was to make Thomas's sad songs and make them happy. He was a program meant to keep Thomas Anderson, well, Thomas Andersoning happily along. When things went wrong, it was Jude who gave Neo up, just like another Jude who turned in someone he admired, Judas Iscariot. The Christ allegory runs thick in The Matrix, from his hacker client calling him his own personal Jesus early in Neo's introduction in The Matrix to his sacrifice to bring about a new world. Matrix Resurrections is as much a sequel as it is a treatise on the banality of endless sequels. Sort of a have your cake and eat it too situation. One of the recurring themes in the original series was characters saying that things that have beginnings have endings. But just like a touring band, fans wanted to hear the hits, and one of the Wachowskis finally returned to the series that had an ending.
But you figured out how to bring it back. I did, sir, I kinda did.
So what happened to things that have beginnings have endings? Well, Agent Smith as Thomas Anderson has updated the philosophy for a franchise age.
That's the thing about stories. They never really end, do they?
Stories have become so much of our lives that some of the concepts and tools of storytelling have reached through to the common language for talking about stories. We know a MacGuffin is a bauble or an item that the characters have to chase to move the story forward, like a magic ring. Another term goes all the way back to early plays where gods would descend and sort out the ending of plays with elaborate machines. This became known as Deus Ex Machina, or God in the Machine. Thomas Anderson's company is called Deus Machina. The Matrix is itself a god machine, and Neo, who can reshape the Matrix, is in it. Every once in a while, a prominent filmmaker is asked if they would do a Marvel movie. Then we get a nice little clickable headline about how they hate them and think that they're ruining cinema by getting people in droves to the cinema. Yeah, it's complicated. What's not complicated is what everyone says about why. Money. As the saying goes, the love of money is the root of all evil. The root of all evil also happens to be the name of the movie Bugs runs into in this film that critiques franchise filmmaking. The Wachowskis have not been sitting on their couch since the last Matrix hit theaters. While their movies have not reached the social penetration of The Matrix, it has had its successes, including the popular series Sense8. Sense8 actors make up some of the cast of Resurrections, but the main character of the series, Lito Rodriguez, has found himself a filmmaking career, being credited with the movie Root of All Evil. You cannot have a franchise refresh without a fair share of winky, naughty cameos. Deus Machina, the company that made the most groundbreaking game in the universe, has its share of heavy hitters who are not just the one guy who was powering the whole thing with his longing. That included Epic Games' Chief Creative Officer Donald Mustard. Epic Games is best known for the Unreal Engine that's used in popular video games and even movie effects. What bigger conspiracy could there be than we are all living in a simulation run by a computer using us as a power source somehow? The Matrix and its multicolored pills have flavored discussions of conspiracy theories since it came out. What keeps conspiracy theorists going is that sometimes there are conspiracies, like the long-running psychological warfare experiments done under the umbrella of MKULTRA. One of those was the Monarch program, experiments in mind control via conditioning. In a nod to that, the analyst that is trying to control Neo's mind via conditioning has a blue Monarch framed on his wall. The Wachowskis have moved on to other projects, and so has Keanu Reeves. After The Matrix moved him from hard sell action star of forgettable movies like Johnny Mnemonic to bankable action star, the only thing that's matched The Matrix is Keanu Reeves' turn as the vengeful assassin and puppy lover, John Wick. John Wick director Chad Stahelski did not let his star get too far out of sight. He played Tiffany's husband, Chad. Here's another piece of decoration in the analyst's office. As Thomas Anderson tries to sort out what exactly is a Thomas Anderson, he's lost in a metaphorical maze, a labyrinth. Over his shoulder is a maze-like design. One of the things that had not been considered when the Machine-Human Pact had been made, and everyone was asked if it was cool if they were used as a battery, was that a lot of people decided against it, draining the machine cities of power. Considering the machines encased humanity because they needed power in the first place, this became a crisis. We get a glimpse of the machines' civil war that erupted as a result. Just for good measure, the machines that wanted to keep things real-ish shot red lasers, while the machines that wanted to rebuild the choiceless Matrix shot blue lasers. In the original series, the way out of the Matrix for the people that popped in voluntarily was to find a landline. For our younger viewers, that was the way most of the world connected to the internet. Nowadays, older people like to pretend that younger people have never heard of a landline as cell phones have taken their place. Cell phones also provide people access to the internet. These screens have been referred to as a black mirror from the reflection that they show when the screen is off and for the reflection of yourself that you create being on the internet. Since landlines are a rare beast in the modern world, people make their way in and out of the Matrix via mirrors, otherwise known as looking glasses, like in Alice, Through the Looking Glass. Names are a common vehicle for symbolism, and the Matrix does not waste any opportunities with them. For resurrections, the humans have holed up in some new digs. A hidden city called Io. Much of the Matrix's philosophy is built around dichotomies. If that was not clear, the new Agent Smith lists all the dichotomies that run through the Matrix, including Smith and Neo. Thomas Anderson is even developing a game called Binary. It makes sense that a computer would think that way, because digital languages at its core is just a collection of things that are either on, ones, or off, zeros. The binary of 1 and 0 look a lot like Io. Wait, we're not done with the Io symbolism yet. The humans not acting as batteries in the original trilogy were holed up in a place called Zion, where they made plans, restocked their ships, and had giant raves for some reason. Call it a 90s holdover. Io happens to be the middle 2 letters of the word Zion, indicating that this place where man and machine live in harmony and recreate strawberries lies between the real people and the world of machines. Oh no, we're not done. Io is also the name of a character in Greek mythology. A priestess for Hera, she was also a beautiful mortal woman. And while Zeus had a fondness for Strange, to hide his dalliances from his wife, he turned Io into a cow. Hera figured it out, but instead of calling him out, had Zeus give her the cow as a gift because their relationship was like a high-stakes sitcom. She then cursed Lo to be menaced by a gadfly. Cows become mothers who then give milk that helps babies grow. So, these victims of 2 conflicting parties, the people of Io, give birth to a new life of human and machines and strawberries, but are menaced by the gadfly of the machines that want to go back. When Smith first met Neo, Neo was just a hacker alias that he used, and one that he was definitely trying to not have it associated with him, which is what he thought was happening in their FBI interrogation. Our first clue that Anderson's partner was in fact Agent Smith was when he characterized their first meeting as having all of the charms of an FBI interrogation. One thing that you probably did not miss was the analyst's cat, the one that Neo hated. For the analyst's reality, Thomas Anderson hated the cat so much that he made Deja Vu, the cat's awkward name, an indication that the Matrix had glitched, something had been rewritten. In reality, it was just part of the illusion the analyst created to convince Neo that his reality was in fact his fiction. Neo seems to be on good terms with the cat by the end though. The Matrix series has become a clearinghouse for philosophies of perception. One of the more complicated nods comes from a common colloquialism. The fate of our new crew hinges on Neo getting his mojo back. Alright, now follow me on this. When he does, one of the crew says Mojo Rising, a repeated phrase in the Doors song LA Woman. As it turns out, Mr. Mojo Risin is an anagram of Jim Morrison. Jim Morrison named his band The Doors of Perception, Aldous Huxley's autobiography of his experiments with hallucinogens and how it affected his view of reality. See? Io as a cow doesn't seem that far-fetched now, does it? Part of Jude's role of keeping Neo happily moving along as Thomas Anderson was to work that conflict that was Anderson's longing for Tiffany. He does misjudge how serious those feelings are and, well, how to talk about women respectfully, especially to someone who holds her in high regard. When he uses a childish term to refer to Tiffany, Thomas suggests that maybe Jude should leave, causing Jude to apologize, blaming his behavior on being raised by machines. Turns out, he was being literal. The Avengers have shawarma, and our guy Neo has noodles. In the car ride to meet the Oracle, a Neo who is still adjusting to the Matrix remarks at a place they pass by that he used to eat there and they had good noodles. In the new Matrix, he has found another noodle place he likes. That noodle place is the House of Nanking on Kearny in San Francisco, across from the cafe of another filmmaker with an iconic trilogy, Francis Ford Coppola's American Zoetrope. They do have good noodles. Bugs, as in Bunny, relates her origin story to Neo about her being a window washer before a more Buddha-like Neo looked into her soul and freed her mind before walking off a ledge and not falling. After Neo's first introduction to the Matrix, he starts to see the cascading code in the soap of the window washers outside his boss's office as he gets chewed out for always being late. The Wachowskis were not the first to propose that we might be in a simulation, and that reality was not as cut and dry as it seemed. That honor goes to science fiction writer Philip K. Dick, best known for having written Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?, the basis for Blade Runner. He was not as good at titles as he was mind-bending stories, but anyway, he proposed that we live in a computer simulation in a talk at a science fiction convention in 1977. Blade Runner defined the neo-noir cyberpunk aesthetic that dominated 80s and 90s science fiction, and The Matrix pays tribute to that legacy, even as it evolved it. That includes Philip K. Dick's penchant for writing stories where someone questions their reality. Ridley Scott's adaptation soaked the future Los Angeles with rain, something echoed in The Matrix, including fire sprinklers going off during the first raid in both the original and Resurrections. While Resurrections seems to have a heavy dose of don't ask me to do this again, I could not help but want to see what the Matrix looks like after Trinity and Neo redesigned the place with rainbow skies. Did they take the analyst's cat?